Greetings to all students and viewers out there. Today we are going to study homeostasis in humans. This is part of the KBSM biology syllabus for Form 5, and it is from Chapter 3 entitled Coordination and Response. Subtopic is 3.4, Homeostasis. So we are going to study the meaning of homeostasis and what's important, and then we'll have a look at the urinary system and the structure of the kidneys, as well as the structure of the functional unit called the nephron. The learning outcomes for today's video are as follows. Firstly, we should be able to explain the necessity of maintaining optimal physical and chemical conditions in the internal environment. Now, maintaining optimal physical and chemical conditions in the internal environment is homeostasis. So, another way to put it is explain the necessity of carrying out homeostasis. Number 2, state the meaning of homeostasis. So please memorize the definition of homeostasis. Number 3, describe the urinary system and the functions of the various parts of the urinary system. And number 4, we should be able to draw, label, and explain the structure of a nephron. Let us start by discussing what the definition of homeostasis is. So, homeostasis is the maintenance of a constant internal environment which is vital or important for body cells to function optimally in. Now, to do this, the body regulates the physical and chemical factors in the internal environment such as temperature or the blood pH, etc. And by internal environment, a constant internal environment, the internal environment means the interstitial fluid or tissue fluid, that's the old term, and blood. So let's start by discussing what the internal environment means. In Chapter 2, last year in Form 4, you have already studied the meaning of the word internal environment, just as we have an external environment that's around our body. For example, your classroom, if you are sitting in the classroom, then the classroom becomes your external environment. It could be the school field or a shopping mall. Just as we have an external environment around us, we also have an internal environment around ourselves. Okay? So our cells are bathed in a fluid called the interstitial fluid. In order to survive, they must be bathed in the interstitial fluid or tissue fluid. That means the fluid surrounding the cells. That is part of the internal environment surrounding the cells. And blood is also part of the internal environment because there are red blood cells that are always found in the blood. So their internal environment, the internal environment of the red blood cells, is the blood itself. Okay, so blood and interstitial fluid make up the internal environment in our body. So homeostasis is the maintenance of a constant internal environment. Maintenance means to keep it at that state, So it's the control of keeping that internal environment in that steady state, which is vital, which is important for body cells to function optimally. Because for body cells to function optimally, they must have a fixed range of temperature, or else the enzymes may become denatured or destroyed. Right? Same with pH too. The pH must be kept in the normal range. And so the homeostasis actually means a steady state. Homeo or homo means same, alike. Stasis is to keep it the same. So a steady state. So our internal environment must be kept in a steady state with the physical and chemical factors controlled. For example, an example of physical factor is temperature. It must be controlled to be at a fixed range, like 37 to 39 degrees Celsius. Within that range, then the body cells can function optimally, the enzymes can function optimally to carry out the reactions in the body for the survival of the organism. So now let's look at some factors and the examples. So we can classify the factors as physical factors or chemical factors. Physical factors include body temperature and blood pressure that need to be regulated through homeostasis, and chemical factors involve chemical compounds such as sugar, salt, oxygen, carbon dioxide, hydrogen ions, and so forth. So that's how we identify chemical factors, okay, or classify them as chemical factors. So examples are blood sugar level, concentration of salt in the blood, partial pressure or concentration of oxygen and carbon dioxide in the blood, pH of blood, and blood osmotic pressure, which depends on this blood osmotic pressure depends on the water and salt concentration in the internal environment, in the interstitial fluid and blood. Now, for concentration of salt in the blood, you see, it can vary or change according to our diet. For example, if a person were to eat a lot of French fries that are very salty, then his concentration of salt in the blood will increase, and then the kidney will have to work hard to excrete the excess salt. Let us look at this table. It shows us some physical and chemical factors and the normal range in the blood or interstitial fluid. For example, glucose level in the blood should be around 90 milligrams per 100 ml of blood, or in terms of millimoles is 4.4 to 5.5 millimoles per decimeter cube of blood. This is the glucose level when fasting. It's called the fasting blood glucose level. If you have eaten something, surely the blood glucose level will shoot up beyond this. So for the fasting blood glucose level, if it is higher than, let's say, 6 millimoles per decimeter cube, for example, somebody may have, like, say, 9 or 10 millimoles per decimeter cube, that is an abnormal value. And for diabetic people, those with diabetes mellitus, it can be around that high or higher, because those with diabetes mellitus or penyakit kencing manis do not produce enough insulin, or does not have enough insulin to convert the excess glucose in the blood into glycogen. So the blood glucose level for diabetic patients is normally higher than this normal range. Okay. Body temperature should be around 37 degrees Celsius to 39 degrees Celsius. It's the normal range. Salt concentration around 131 to 157 millimoles per decimeter cube. For pH of blood and interstitial fluid, it should be around 7.34, pH 7.34 to 7.43. So around pH 7.4. So the blood is slightly alkaline. Okay, we have studied the what of homeostasis. What is homeostasis? Now the why. Explain the necessity of maintaining optimal physical and chemical conditions in the internal environment. Okay, 4 marks. It can be asked as a question, or it could be explain the necessity of carrying out homeostasis, because maintaining optimal physical and chemical conditions is homeostasis. Okay, so what is the necessity or importance of homeostasis in the internal environment of our body? Let's look at the answer. Changes in external or internal conditions, either inside or outside our body, can cause changes to the conditions of the internal environment, conditions of the blood and the interstitial fluid. So homeostasis must occur to regulate or control the physical and chemical factors, such as temperature, to be in a constant state of dynamic equilibrium. Dynamic equilibrium here means that the temperature can rise or fall, but it must be within that normal range. Okay, within an average value that is the optimum value. To ensure physiological processes in the body proceed at optimum rates. Optimum means at the best rates. So to ensure physiological processes, they are processes that need to be carried out in the body for the survival of the organism, such as enzymatic reactions, for example. These enzymatic reactions need to proceed at optimum rates, that means at the highest rates, to keep the organism alive and for the well-being of the organism. So it's to promote harmonious growth and development. And in this way, it will also help the organism to adjust to changes in the environment, such as a sudden increase in temperature. The room may become, where you're sitting in, may become hotter. So you have to adjust to the change by sweating to cool yourself down. Correct? Now, number 5, constant internal environment is vital for survival of organism. Survival in Malay is called kemandirian. That means for the continual existence of the organism, continual living of the organism. Example, you can give an example. If body temperature is higher than normal, maybe above 39 degrees, it could be 45 degrees, the body's enzymes will be denatured and the organism will die. Okay, for example, when a child is left in a hot car, in the afternoon, and he doesn't know how to get out, or he may be asleep, then his body may overheat, and the enzymes will be denatured or destroyed. They cannot then carry out the reactions in the body. So it's very dangerous and the organism can die. We have already studied what homeostasis is and also why it is important. So now let's study how homeostasis is carried out. It is carried out using the negative feedback mechanism, which you may have heard when you studied chapter 2. So negative feedback mechanism, the word negative means to take away that condition, whether it is the value of the factor is going up or down. You have to take away that condition. So it is a negative feedback mechanism is a corrective mechanism. It seeks to correct something, to restore a factor that deviates. For example, temperature may have deviated or changed from its normal range. As we said, the temperature may have increased to 40 degrees Celsius, temperature of the body. All right, so it's changed from the normal range of 37 to 39 degrees Celsius. So the body has to do something, has to carry out a corrective mechanism or many corrective mechanisms to bring back the temperature to its normal value. So as long as it tries to change that factor and bring it down back to the normal value or bring it up back to the normal value, then it's negative feedback. Meaning, if the temperature is too low, temperature of the body is too low, then the corrective mechanism like shivering will occur, menggeletar or menggigil. That will happen to bring up the temperature back to normal, the body temperature, to try and bring up the temperature back to normal. And if the temperature of the body is too high, then sweating will occur. That's the corrective mechanism. Again, is to bring back the temperature back to normal, but it's from high temperature to a lower temperature. So either way, it's called negative feedback because you're trying to take away that condition that is not conducive or suitable for the body. Now let's look at a schematic diagram that is usually used to explain negative feedback mechanism. First, you have a normal condition, like normal body temperature of 37 degrees Celsius. Then maybe you go out into the hot sun, okay, for quite a while. So the receptors in the skin, the thermoreceptors, will detect the change in the temperature of the body. Maybe the body temperature shot up to 39 degrees Celsius. And so the control center will receive that impulse from the receptor. So receptor sends an impulse via the afferent neuron, or the receptor triggers an impulse in the afferent neuron. Afferent neuron transmits impulse to control center, which is the brain. So the brain will send an impulse to the effectors. Okay, so what is the effector in this case? Effector is the one that the muscle or gland that responds. In this case, it's a gland, the sweat gland, right? So the sweat gland will start to secrete the sweat onto the surface of the skin, and when the sweat absorbs the heat and then evaporates, the body will cool down. So this will bring down the value of the temperature down back to normal, and that's called negative feedback because the increase in temperature has been taken away. It has been reduced back to normal. Okay, that's negative feedback. We don't allow the temperature to keep going up. If the temperature continues to go up because of some malfunctioning in the body systems, then it means it's positive feedback. Positive feedback can lead to death, but negative feedback is what happens in homeostasis to bring the value of the factor back to normal. Now, on the other hand, if you go into a very cold air-conditioned room for a long time, then the body temperature will decrease. Okay, so the temperature, the value of the temperature will decrease, and the receptor, again, receptors in the skin are stimulated. So an impulse is sent to the control center, the brain. Brain will send impulses to another effector. What effector will act when somebody is cold? Yes, it's the skeletal muscles of the arms and the legs and the body. What do the skeletal muscles do? They will contract and relax alternately in an involuntary action, as an involuntary action. You cannot control that shivering. Okay, it uses the skeletal muscles to contract. As they contract and relax, they are actually producing some heat also in the process of contraction. So that heat can increase the temperature, okay, and it may bring it back to normal, or it may not. So if it brings it back to normal, then you call it negative feedback mechanism. Okay. So today we are going to study one example of homeostasis. All right. Let's look at the 3 examples that you have to study for this syllabus. Examples of homeostasis. First one is regulation of blood osmotic pressure. Blood osmotic pressure depends on the water and salt content in the internal environment. The water and salt content. So that is controlled by the kidney and the brain. And the process of regulation of blood osmotic pressure is also called osmoregulation. Osmo stands for the osmotic pressure. So control of osmotic pressure, blood osmotic pressure, is osmoregulation. Now, regulation of body temperature by the skin, thyroid gland, adrenal gland, and brain. So for body temperature, skin is involved to regulate it. Then the 2 glands, thyroid gland and adrenal gland. And of course, the brain as the control center. And for the brain, the hypothalamus is involved in the control of blood osmotic pressure and body temperature. Now, number 3, regulation of blood sugar level. For this one, the brain is not mentioned. It's just the 2 organs, pancreas and liver. So we'll start by discussing regulation of blood osmotic pressure. So we're going to study the regulation of blood osmotic pressure. For the first video, we'll be studying the urinary system, the cross-section of the kidney, and then the nephron, which is the functional unit of the kidney that produces the urine. This is for the first video. Now for the second video, we will discuss number 4, formation of urine, which consists of 3 processes: ultrafiltration, reabsorption, and secretion. That's for the second video. And for the third video, we'll study osmoregulation, which is the control of the blood osmotic pressure by using hormones, ADH or antidiuretic hormone, and aldosterone. Okay, so first video is this one, concerns this one. Second video concerns formation of urine, and third video osmoregulation. Now the second and third video, these 2 will be coming up very soon because it's already done. So stay tuned for these 2 also after the first video is up. The first factor that we are going to study is blood osmotic pressure. How is blood osmotic pressure regulated by the kidney and the brain? So we're going to study the urinary system, which is involved in this process. Urinary system functions to produce urine and excrete the waste products of the body. So it consists of a pair of kidneys, the right kidney and the left kidney. How do you know which side is the right or left side? It's very simple. It's just the opposite of your body. So you are facing the person, therefore your left side is the person's right side, and vice versa. So since this is our left side, it is labeled right kidney, and this side is the left kidney. Same for the labeling of the chambers of the heart. Okay, right. So the kidneys, what are the three functions of the kidneys? Firstly, they help to excrete the waste products in the formation of urine. Secondly, they help to regulate blood osmotic pressure. Thirdly, they regulate blood pH too. Regulate blood osmotic pressure and blood pH, and excrete the waste products from the body through the formation of urine. So what about the blood circulatory system here in the urinary system? Start off with the aorta. Aorta transports the oxygenated blood from the heart, and then aorta branches to form the two renal arteries, one on the left side and the other on the right side. The one on the right side is hidden. Right, so this pink one. Now, renal artery, what is the composition of the renal artery? The composition. Renal artery contains blood, which has a lot of oxygen, but it has also got a lot of waste products like urea, ammonia, and uric acid. So the blood is transported to the kidneys so that the kidney can help to excrete, filter and excrete all these waste products. Okay, so function of renal artery is to transport the oxygenated blood to the kidneys. Now, how about renal vein? So renal vein transports deoxygenated blood out of the kidneys. So renal vein has a lot of carbon dioxide, which is produced through the process of respiration in the cells in the kidney. So renal vein has a lot of carbon dioxide, but the blood has been filtered, meaning that it has less waste products, less urea or no urea, okay, and less uric acid, less ammonia. So renal vein will combine together with the other veins, and it will form the vena cava, which transports the filtered blood and deoxygenated blood back to the heart. Okay, now what about the other parts of the urinary system? So after the urine is formed in the kidney, it is carried by the ureter. Ureter carries the urine to the urinary bladder to be stored, and then the urethra will carry the urine from the urinary bladder out of the body during excretion, during the excretion of the urine. Take note, this is ureter. The first tube, upper tube is ureter, and the lower one is urethra. So just remember E first before the H here. Here are the notes about the parts of the urinary system and the characteristics, with some important points, like renal artery carries oxygenated blood and nutrients from heart to kidneys. This is the function of the renal artery. The word renal has to do with kidneys. Okay, so renal artery is the one that transports the blood to the kidneys. Blood contains a lot of oxygen waste products like urea, uric acid, and excess salt. So you may be asked to give some examples of waste products carried by the renal artery. Renal vein, on the other hand, carries deoxygenated blood from the kidney back to the heart. Blood is filtered and contains less waste products, but a lot of carbon dioxide. Kidney. Now, what are the three functions of the kidney? First one, excretes waste products such as urea and of course uric acid, salts, ammonia. Secondly, it regulates or controls the blood osmotic pressure, which has to do with the balance of water and salt in the body, and it also controls blood pH. So these are the three functions of the kidney. Okay, so you have to remember this because it's a past year question. So a star here means that it's important, and it has come out in the past year questions. Ureter carries urine or transports or channels urine, carries or channels the urine from kidneys to the urinary bladder to be stored. Urinary bladder is a muscular sac that stores the urine before the excretion of the urine. Urethra carries urine from urinary bladder to the external environment and removes urine from the body. Now let's study the structure of the kidneys. The shape of the kidney is like a bean, and it contains an outer cortex, inner medulla, and pelvis that opens into a ureter. We'll look at that in the next slide. Now, this is the past year question. What are the functions of the kidney? So I put here PY means past year questions. Important, huh? So it excretes waste products such as urea and uric acid, regulates blood osmotic pressure, and regulates blood pH. All 3 points must be written in the answer. Let us now discuss the parts of a kidney. So the size of a kidney, how big is it? It's about 10 cm in length, around there, and the size is like a large fist, F-I-S-T. Now, so let's look at the parts of the kidney. Starting with the renal capsule. It is a tough, fibrous outer layer that helps to protect the kidney. And then, what are the sections of the kidney or the parts of the kidney? So there is a outer cortex. Cortex is the name for the outer tissues of certain organs. So it's like a general name, the outer cortex. And then a second layer is the inner medulla. Think of the word middle, it's in the middle, medulla. And thirdly, there is the pelvis, okay, that receives all the urine that's formed from the other two regions, and the pelvis will channel the urine out of the kidney through the ureter. Then there are, of course, the artery and the vein. The artery, called the renal artery, that transports the oxygenated blood into the kidney, and renal vein transports the deoxygenated blood and filtered blood out from the kidney and towards the heart. The blood will flow back to the heart. So here are the notes for the parts of the kidney and their functions. Cortex, not much to mention here, except outer light red region contains nephrons. Okay, we are coming to this topic of nephrons. Nephrons are the basic functional unit in the kidney that produces the urine. We'll discuss this in a short while. Contains masses of blood capillaries called glomeruli, or the singular form is glomerulus. Okay, so we are going to talk about this later on. Medulla, inner darker red region, contains loops of Henle, of nephrons, collecting ducts. All this will be discussed in the next part. Channels urine to pelvis. Then pelvis channels the urine to the ureter, and the ureter will channel the urine to the urinary bladder to be stored. Okay, now let's look at the functional unit in the kidney that produces the urine. It's called the, everyone say together this word, try and say this word, nephron. Now, nephron is not neutron, okay, and neither is it neuron. So please take note, it's E-N-E-P-H-R-O-N, nephron. So a nephron is the functional unit of the kidney that produces urine and excretes waste products. It's quite tiny, and in each kidney there are 1 million nephrons. So this is the next part that we are going to study. How is the urine actually formed in the kidney? How does the blood transfer all the waste products into the urine, which is then excreted? Okay, so it's an interesting process. Glomerulus is the mass of blood capillaries located in Bowman's capsule of nephron, and it's the location of ultrafiltration. Okay, we'll discuss this later. And Bowman's capsule, cup shape, is cavity, contains glomerulus, location of ultrafiltration. We are going to discuss this. Now let's study the structure of a nephron. A nephron is the basic functional unit of the kidney that produces the urine. Each kidney has about 1 to 1.5 million nephrons. What is the structure of a nephron? Basically, it consists of number 1, the Bowman's capsule, number 2, the proximal convoluted tubule, number 3, the loop of Henle, and number 4, the distal convoluted tubule. It also includes the mass of blood capillaries here called the glomerulus. Okay, let's begin by discussing Bowman's capsule. Bowman's capsule is shaped like a cup. If I put my pointer here, you can see it's like the open mouth of a snake here, with the eyes here. Now, when you're drawing the structure of this nephron, try to make a beautiful drawing of the nephron. You begin by drawing the outer line here first, to make it easy for you. And after that, you draw the inner line here, to draw your nephron. Okay, so joined to the nephron is the proximal convoluted tubule. Proximal means near to the head, near to the beginning, the Bowman's capsule, near to Bowman's capsule. Convoluted means it's coiled, and tubule means a tiny tube. So that's the proximal convoluted tubule that is coiled, or berlingkar in Malay. Now, joined to that is the loop of Henle. So Henle is the name of a German scientist. The loop of Henle consists of 2 limbs here. Descending limb is where the fluid will flow downwards, and the ascending limb is where the fluid flows upwards here. Okay, then there's the distal convoluted tubule, the next part. So distal means far from the beginning, and convoluted is coiled. Think of the word distant, meaning far away, as compared to the proximal part. So this is the distal convoluted tubule, and at the end of it, the urine will be formed here. Then the urine will flow out of the nephron through the collecting duct to the pelvis, and from the pelvis to the ureter. So each collecting duct here, this section is called the collecting duct, this structure, collecting duct. Each collecting duct is joined to more than 1 nephron. Collects the urine from more than 1 nephron. So in the kidney, there are many collecting ducts too. Now let's talk about the system of the blood circulatory system. So think about the renal artery. Renal artery branches to form many arterioles. Arterioles are small arteries. So here is one arteriole called the afferent arteriole. Just like you have afferent neuron. So this is afferent arteriole. It transports the blood into the glomerulus. Okay, and then from glomerulus, the blood flows out through the efferent arteriole here. When you draw the afferent arteriole and efferent arteriole, make sure you draw the afferent arteriole with a bigger diameter. It's bigger than the efferent arteriole. That's a reason for that, and we'll discuss in the next video. So from efferent arteriole, the blood will flow downwards, and it will flow in the network of blood capillaries here, which is not shown here yet. Okay, so that you can draw the drawing more clearly, more easily. So now, cortex and medulla. So the upper part of the nephron is in the cortex. Only the loop of Henle is in the medulla. Only the loop of Henle is in the inner medulla region of the kidney. So this diagram shows you the nephron, and then after you draw the nephron, you can draw in the system of blood capillaries using a red ink pen or red color pencil. Right? So the blood flows from the afferent arteriole to the glomerulus, and then to the efferent arteriole, and down through all the blood capillaries that forms a network of blood capillaries surrounding the nephron and intertwined with the nephron. When the blood flows out via the venu, it's already filtered, and they'll be transported out of the kidney by the renal vein. Okay, so learn to draw it, and you will become, you will understand the whole structure better when you draw it and label it too. The last slide here shows you the position of the nephron in the kidney. If you enlarge it, it looks like this. The upper part of the nephron is in the cortex. Only the loop of Henle is in the medulla. The loop of Henle is in the medulla. Okay, that ends our lesson for today. Thank you for watching. Please like, share and subscribe, and I will continue to make or produce videos for the nervous system and the endocrine system, which we have not finished discussing, and also videos on homeostasis will also be coming up. Goodbye for now.